Hi, it's Rachel. Belief in the human spirit and desire to connect is the reason that I want to tell your story and mine. And I am with Christy Larson with the Mamie Pearl Foundation. Tell me about this.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for having me on the show, on the podcast. So I'm Christy Larson, of course, CEO and founder of Mamie Pearl Foundation. And we started this foundation to assist individuals that have experienced sexual abuse, rape, human trafficking. We provide, we are like the eHarmony for healing. So we make the connection for the survivor, the individual that has this trauma, and make them a perfect match for therapists, counselors, whatever level they're at, whatever they need. So, and then we also pay for the therapy. So we provide that for them financially. There's a lot of people that can't afford it. So that's how we started here, and we're just trying to continuously grow.
Wow, that is incredible. And what made you decide to found the Mamie Pearl Foundation?
Well, I think it took me several years of up and downs to kind of find my purpose here. And I think the main influence was my mother growing up, watching her go through her struggles of her experience as a child into early young adulthood with rape and abuse, domestic violence from her parents and then friends of parents. That changed how she reacted as she got older, and it led her down a path of not so good drugs, and then trying to pull herself back up with 3 children in the household, and it got significantly worse after my parents got divorced. Now she's a single mother doing things by herself, and at the time I didn't really understand what was going on. All I knew is that we were struggling and there wasn't much food in the house. But as you get older, you start hearing these stories of what occurred and why your parents aren't bringing you around certain family members, and and then they're gone and you're crying, I never got to develop a relationship with these people. And then you realize why, because they're not really good people. Your parents were actually protecting you. So after learning my whole story of my mother, I realized that back then there wasn't any therapy available for single mothers or individuals that have experienced this massive level of sexual abuse and trauma. So she really did the best that she could. So I felt like, okay, well, now me being who I am and the time and date that I'm in now, that I actually do have the tools to develop this platform, this program for individuals that are suffering like she did. So it's really like a dedication to her, leave a legacy on that can continue to help other people. So that's what made me develop this. Mm-hmm.
And your mom, she was Mamie?
Yes, she's Mamie Pearl. Yep, Mamie Pearl. So she was such a bright light. She was a super loving mother. She just made a lot of mistakes, but when I look back, I'm like, well, who could blame her? Doing a lot of this by yourself. And I have one child, and he runs me ragged. So to imagine having 3 of them and trying to do everything, hold down a job, having maybe babysitters fall through, or even trying to find someone trustworthy enough to even watch your children. And you don't know what they're being subject to while you're gone at work, and then of course you have those moments where you're probably exhausted and you don't know where to turn to. So you turn to relaxation drugs or things that make you escape for a while, a little bit of escapism. And then that just leads you down this terrible hole, and you don't take care of yourself, so that was her entire path. And I watched her just slowly decline as I got older, and she passed away at 56. So she passed away super young, and was in really bad shape. She just did not, her self-esteem was beaten. I just say that I think she really did die from a broken heart, because of everything else that she just took in. So yeah.
So your mom, Mamie Pearl, she had all these very tough experiences, and she had a tough life. And then when she has you guys, the kids, sometimes you don't even have food to eat. And she does the best she can, but she has a hard life.
Yeah. Yeah, she did. And it was not just her. I think with my mother and my father, that they used to say too, uh, that my father actually married. I mean, not only because they were definitely very in love with each other, but they married at a very young age. And one of the things was that my mother would say, "Your father married me to kind of save me, to get me out of this life of violence." From certain family members, being raped, sexually abused, molested on a regular basis. So, that was another thing that my father helped get her out of that particular
Ooh.
lifestyle. But then if you look at my father's background, his father was very abusive to him and all of his siblings. And those stories are just, it just really breaks my heart to hear the stories of the sexual abuse and rape that my aunts went through by the hands of their own father. It's just terrible, terrible. So my father, not only did he witness it and experience it in his family, he saw and met my mother. They fell in love, seeing that she was also going through this, wanted to marry her and pull her over, and kind of, I think that they were both a little comfort blanket to one another, you know.
Mm,
So
yes,
they stayed together for quite some time after that, many years, but obviously that didn't end up in the long run, or work
yeah,
out.
yeah. So your dad and your mom, they both have very hard childhoods. They have family members who do not do good things, and they try to save each other. They find
Right.
each other to try to save each other. And sometimes when you got two broken people, you know, it can be hard. You get together, you think that you'll be healed, you make one whole, but sometimes you got to be whole on your own
Yeah.
before you join together. It's just very difficult, but also very beautiful. Both your mom and your dad, they tried, with the tools, with what they had. They
Right.
did try, yes. And then how did this affect you? When you're little, sometimes you don't have enough to eat, but then you start learning these stories, and this is affecting you when you're a kid.
That's very true. Now, my mother tried to shelter us quite a bit, but she was also, a little naive in certain areas. Like I said, they got married very young, so that means they had children very young. So I want to say around 5 or 6 myself, 5 to 6 years old, and then my sister around 7 to 8 years old. She's about 2 years older than me. Both my parents were working. They're young, so they're kind of in that little party life. Just moving along, swinging along, and then so they introduced babysitter to us, and at that time we felt very trustworthy to this babysitter. But over time, he did start molesting myself and my sister. So I was so young, I didn't understand what was going on, and I think it was my sister that eventually told my mother, what was going on. But I remember one time, after this had happened several times, and my parents were, oblivious to what was going on, of course. And I'm like this little 6-year-old. My sister and our babysitter is sitting on the couch, and he has a blanket covered up over both of them. And I knew in my mind, this little 6-year-old, I could tell, you sisters have that little bond of
Yes,
energy. I knew
yes,
something was wrong. And so I stand up and I'm like, stop touching my sister, And so you could see the look on his face, like, because my parents were right in the next room, then they're just getting dressed, getting ready. I think there was an event happening. And he just like jumps up, on my sister, because you just know that something's going on under there that's not
yes.
appropriate. And that's one thing I remember. But like I said earlier, my sister and I, we took different paths on how we healed ourselves. I suppressed a lot of memories, a lot of emotions, and my sister went quite the opposite of that. Whereas she would literally remind me of good events, that events. So you suppress the bad memories, but you also can suppress the good memories too. And I'm like, I don't remember that day, but that sounds like an amazing day that we had
Yes,
fun with. And then once she brings it to my attention, I'm like, oh my gosh, I suppressed the good and the bad.
yes,
So it's, it is really kind of quite upsetting, but that was the only way I could cope with that situation,
yes. I love that you share your story, very brave. And also, it is very interesting that when you are 5 and 6 years old and your sister is 7, so you're just little kids, and you actually stand up for yourself as a
Mhm.
very small child.
Mhm.
And so I think that, little Christy, that's how you got your
Fiery.
start. Fiery, from the
Yeah.
start. And
Yeah.
so I really applaud that, because there are many people, adults, who will never stand up for themselves,
Mhm.
whether it be for a trauma abuse or even bullying in the workplace, other things, and they never take that step. And you have to take the step very hard. You don't know even what to do, like when you're 6 years old, like that young, but you actually did it. And I find that of your story, I find that you say something when you're 6 years old. It's the most astounding part. And what makes you think that you have that inner fire, that you stand up for yourself?
I've thought about that. That's such a good question. I've thought about
Yes.
it a million times because I mean, if you compare me to a number of individuals in my family, it's just like literally day and night. I've always been so fiery, so motivated, so brave and courageous. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's certain times where I'm just like, oh, and it's very
Yeah.
scary, and maybe I just don't decide to take those risks, but most of the time I do decide to take those risks. So I don't know if it's I mean if it's one of my great grandmothers that just gave me that little spirit of fire to just keep pushing and defend myself. Because it's funny, my sister and I, our dynamic, it's always been like I'm the youngest, but I've always
Yes.
felt like protecting her, so it's almost
Ooh.
like I've got this old soul and my sister has
Ooh.
this bright young, you know childlike soul. And when you meet her, and I believe you will, you'll understand what I'm saying. Is she ended up going into a path of teaching and working with children. So she follows her passions as well. So it's just like, it's so odd that I'm the youngest, she's the oldest, but we have that protective role where I kind of like take that old protection role of being the older sister,
Yes.
so. But
Beautiful.
the courage, I don't know where it come
Yeah.
from. And it's just in my blood. I got victory in my veins, I guess.
Ooh. Oh, I love that. I love that.
Thank
And
you.
so, not only at 6 years old do you stand up for yourself, you stand up for your older sister, but then also with this Mamie Pearl Foundation,
Mhm.
you actually are putting your fire and your light into the world, and you help other victims of
Yes.
rape, sexual trauma. And, what made you actually decide to go that extra step? It's one thing you do it for yourself and your family, but now you're doing it for others. You are, Christy.
Yes.
And, how did you decide that you're going to go that extra mile?
Well, I think that all of the struggles that I experienced with my journey, I think not just personally, because when you become a victim of trauma, it takes you quite some time. At least for me, it
Yes.
did. It took me quite some time to realize that it's really affecting my interpersonal relationships, not just
Mm,
personally, but also professionally. I spent a lot of time and a lot of money investing into my education, investing in myself, trying to understand how everything works so that I could be as successful as possible. But I kept hitting roadblock after roadblock, um, having issues with individuals at work because of massive trust issues within myself.
mm.
At that time, I didn't really realize. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of people, there were several jerks out there.
Yes.
But there were other instances where I probably had several missed opportunities because I didn't
Mm.
understand my own emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
because I had that wall of trust. It was just blocked, and I
Mm.
didn't have the capability of recognizing that this is an actual opportunity if I weren't to be so defensive and lack
Mm.
trust in this particular relationship. So I've paid attention to all of that throughout the years as I've gathered my knowledge, my experience within the workplace. And then, of course, I had a bachelor's degree in clinical psychology, and then I got a bachelor's degree in industrial organizational psychology. So I was able to kind of match the two with trauma, and then within you connecting it within the workplace, you're working in this corporate atmosphere, you're seeing that, okay, you are missing opportunities, So it's like you're looking within. And I wanted to offer that to other individuals. So my main goal is, yes, we have a lot of programs out for children, but what about those adults that never had that opportunity to really heal themselves from childhood trauma? So I want to focus on those adults. If you're in that corporate world and you've never really addressed those issues, you're finding that you're bouncing off of these, or having trouble with interpersonal relationships, then come to us and we can really, connect you with the right people to work through that.
Ooh.
So that's another big reason that I think would be super helpful.
I really love that. Very beautiful, because I always say personal affects professional. And
Yes.
you have described it so beautifully, that you get your education, you're in corporate, and yet it is the childhood trauma which still haunted you, and you got to heal.
Yeah.
And so, Christy, you explained it with your story, and I love it, because I want everyone to know that sometimes when you're having a hard time with your romantic relationships, or your relationships at work, or even just your friends, everything that happened to you, including with your family, it all matters. Personal affects professional. And so I love that you shared that. And now that you founded Mammy Pearl Foundation, do you find that, many individuals, they are really getting the help that you wanted? That's how you started.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And not only that, it's actually allowed me to kind of find my soul tribe of, I like to say soul tribe of healers, because there's a lot of people out there that are just have this natural gift. They want to heal, they want to help. And then some people that maybe don't realize that that's their gift. And then, we meet and they say, oh, okay, and then you do start seeing, okay, well, you are a natural healer and that you should really be a part of this. So yes, you find those people that want to be healed turn into healers, because they know what it's like to go through that healing process. And it's so much easier to empower someone and really encourage them to get that healing if you can resonate and relate to them on that same particular level. So I like to meet individuals. And let's be honest, if you look at the world today, we're really screaming for healing at many, many levels, So when we can get together and recognize that as a whole, then it just is that much better, healers gathering all around. So that's a huge, huge thing I've noticed with building this foundation, my soul tribe of healers.
Wow. I really like that, because you bring up that you surround yourself with people who have this vision and who want to do the right thing the way that you do. And so, you're fiery, you have this drive, and then you surround yourself with people that help you with these goals. Amazing. I love it. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
My last question for you. What makes you feel alive?
Oh, goodness. I mean, honestly, I want to say that fiery energy that we talked about before, it's something that I think I just get pushed by a higher power. I mean, that's really all I can explain is that, and I've been beaten down so much, whether it be my own self-demise or whether it just be toxic individuals that I've pulled into my life from my own traumatic experiences. And I've fallen down so many times, but there's just something inside of me, that little higher power push, that fire that we mentioned earlier, that just says, okay, you can cry for like 2.5 seconds and then it's time to get back up again, so it's just what makes me feel alive is that I just do not give up. I got a goal, I have a mission to achieve. Actually, I believe it's God's mission. So I kind of have no choice. I have to get up and keep going, and that's what keeps me alive. And probably most importantly, my son definitely makes me feel alive. So I have a lot of things that are motivating for me. So
Well, thank you, Christy.
Thank you, Rachel. It's my pleasure.